Zaki removed various parts from 4 hibiscus flowers, as shown in the table below. He then collected pollen grains from an intact flower and dusted them onto the remaining parts of the flowers, as shown above. In which of the following flowers will fertilization take place? Flower B. Harry recorded the following observations of a flower on a field trip to the botanical gardens. Observations. The flower has small dull petals. It has no scent. It has anthers and stigma. The following is most likely correct. 1. It is a bisexual flower. 2. It can become a fruit. 3. It is a wind-pollinated flower. Evelyn performed an experiment on 2 identical flowers from the same plant. One of the flowers is shown below. She removed 1 part from each flower. After 1 week, she recorded her observations in a table. Which of the following shows correctly the part of each flower that was removed? Flower Q has brightly colored petals and a sweet smell. The pollen grains of flower Q are small and sticky. Name the most likely method of pollination and explain how the process of pollination is carried out. Insect pollination. It has brightly colored petals that attracts insects to pollinate the flower. When the insects brush against the anther, the pollen grain will attach itself onto the insect's body. If the insects pollinate a female flower, the pollen grains will eventually fall off from the insect's body onto the stigma. The diagram below shows insect P and flower Q. It is often found sitting on flower Q, allowing it to hunt other insects. Insect P has feelers looks like the anthers of flower Q. B. Explain how insect P sitting on flower Q is disadvantageous to flower Q. Insect P will kill or eat the pollinators. Thus, pollination cannot take place. Shannon wanted to investigate a property of tree materials X, Y, and Z. She placed material X in a wooden box, shown in the setup below, and recorded the amount of light detected by the light sensor. She repeated the experiment with materials Y and Z. The amount of light detected by the light sensor is recorded in the table below. What property of the tree materials is Shannon investigating? Transparency / how much light the material allows to pass through. Explanation: a material has properties such as transparency. Shannon used the same thickness for all 3 materials. Explain why. To make the experiment fair, so that the only factor affecting the amount of light detected is the transparency of the material. Explanation: a fair experiment only has one variable factor that affects the result. C. A greenhouse is a place where plants are grown. Shannon wants to build a greenhouse using one of the materials X, Y, or Z. Which material is the most suitable for building a greenhouse? Give a reason for your answer. Material X. It allows the most amount of light to pass through for the plants to make food. A plant with green and white areas on its leaves was left in a dark room for 3 days. One of its leaves was partly covered with black paper on both sides. After 3 days, the plant was placed under a bright light source for 48 hours and the leaf was tested for starch with iodine solution. Which diagram shows how the leaf would look like when tested for starch? Tree. Wind turbines are used to generate electricity. The graph shows the amount of electrical energy produced by wind turbines with different lengths of blades at different wind speeds. From the graph, which pair of conditions shown below will enable the wind turbine to produce the most amount of electrical energy? Wind speed, higher wind speed. Length of blade, longer blades. Hazel set up an experiment to find out how the type of bulb affects the temperature of its surroundings. Bulb R was lit. She covered the box and recorded the temperature of the air in the box over a period of 10 minutes. She removed bulb R and left the box uncovered for 30 minutes before repeating the experiment with bulb S and then bulb T. The results are recorded in a table. A. Fill in the boxes to show the energy conversions in the bulb. Electrical energy converted to light energy plus heat energy. B. Suggest why Hazel left the box uncovered for 30 minutes before repeating the experiment with the next bulb. It allows the bulb to return to the original to ensure a fair test. C. Hazel decided to use bulb R to light up her room to reduce energy used by the air conditioner. Explain why bulb R was the best choice. Bulb R produced the least heat, so the air conditioner will need the least energy to cool the room. Ray swung on a trapeze from point W to X and X to Y, then back again. Explain why Ray stopped swinging after some time. All his kinetic energy has been converted to heat and sound energy. B. When Ray and Sue swung from W to X and X to Y, it was observed that they swung faster than when it was just Ray. Explain this observation using the concept of energy. With more mass, Ray and Sue have more potential energy than when it was just Ray. More potential energy was converted to more kinetic energy, so Ray and Sue swung faster. Ray held on to Sue from the trapeze, as shown. When Ray released Sue, she fell into a safety net below her. Sue was then pushed upwards into the air by the safety net. Fill in the blanks below to show the energy conversions as Sue fell and was pushed upwards into the air. Potential energy, Sue at first converted to kinetic energy as Sue fell, converted to elastic potential energy of the safety net, converted to gravitational potential energy plus kinetic energy. As Sue was pushed upwards, unripe bananas are green and contain chlorophyll. Bananas curve upwards when they grow. Suggest why bananas grow upwards. Bananas grow upwards to absorb sunlight, to carry out photosynthesis for the plant. The diagram below shows parts of a flower. Which part of the flower will receive the pollen grains during pollination? B. Stigma. Bill conducted an experiment using a beaker of water. The temperature of the water was measured throughout the experiment and recorded on the graph shown below. At certain points of the experiment, she added some ice to the beaker of water. At which points of the graph above did Beverly add some ice? A, E, and F. John compared the strength of four materials A, B, C, and D by placing loads to each of them. He then recorded his observation in the table below, using a tick V to indicate breaking of the material and using a cross X to indicate no breaking of the material. Which one of the following shows the strongest and weakest objects correctly? 4. Strongest material, D. Weakest material, A. The diagram below shows the various stages as a seed germinates into a young plant. At which stages is the plant able to make its own food? D and E only. Two bar magnets of equal strength are suspended by threads. They are separated by a thin piece of aluminium foil. Which of the following diagrams correctly shows what will happen when the magnets are brought close together? 4. John chose 3 flowers from the same plant. He named them X, Y, and Z. He did the following to each flower. Flower X, remove anther. Flower Y, remove style. Flower Z, remove petals. He dusted each flower with pollen grains. Which of the following flowers would develop into fruits after 3 weeks? 2. X and Z only. Study the diagram below. Which of the following correctly describes the energy changes? Chemical potential energy, electrical energy, heat energy, plus light energy. 4 rubber balls are placed on a flight of stairs. The mass of ball B is 600 g, while balls A, C, and D are 400 g each. Arrange the balls in descending order of gravitational potential energy. B, A, C, D. Jane made use of a flow chart to find out if a few unknown objects are magnets, magnetic materials, or non-magnetic materials. Write the correct letter A, B, C, or D for each of the objects given in the table below. Each letter can be used only once. The diagram below shows our digestive system. A. Name the digestive juice that is produced in A. Saliva. B. In which part A, B, C, D, E, or F is digested food absorbed into the bloodstream? Part D. C. What is the main function of E? Undigested food goes to the large intestine, where water is absorbed from it, forming solid waste, which is then passed out of the anus. The diagram below shows a flowchart of the characteristics of some animals. Based on the above flowchart, list one similarity between animals A and C. Both the female of animals A and C lays eggs. B. List one difference between animals A and C. The young of animal does not live in water, but the young of animal C lives in water. C. Give an example of animal D. Guppy or shark or molly. Tom carried out 2 separate experiments as shown below. In the first experiment, he carried out the following steps. Step 1. Wrap a piece of paper tightly around the whole length of the wooden rod. Step 2. Wrap a piece of metal foil around the middle portion of the wooden rod. Step 3. Heat the entire length of the wooden rod over a flame for a few minutes. After the metal foil had been removed, he noticed that both parts A and C of the wooden rod were burnt while B remained unaffected. He sketched his observations as shown below. In the second experiment, Tom placed a piece of paper over a flame and the paper burned and caught fire quickly. However, when he placed a metal plate on a piece of paper and held the paper over a flame, he realized that the paper was not burned immediately. From the 2 experiments above, what can Tom conclude about the property of metal, which prevented the paper from being burned? Metal is a good conductor of heat. B. Suggest what Tom would observe about the paper if he were to repeat the second experiment using a plastic plate instead of a metal plate. The paper will be burnt. C. Explain your answer in B. The plastic plate is not able to conduct the heat away from the paper. Paul filled a syringe with 20 milliliters of water. He covered the nozzle of the syringe with the end of his finger and pushed in the plunger with his other hand. What would the volume of water be when Paul pushed in the plunger? 200 milliliters of water. B. What does this experiment show? Water has a definite volume. C. Repeat the same experiment with air instead of water. Will the result still be the same? Explain why. No. Air does not have a definite volume. Sean set up an experiment as shown below. Describe clearly what Sean will observe when he blows into the straw. Bubbles are seen rising up into the inverted glass. Water comes out of the inverted glass. B. What can Sean conclude from this experiment? Air occupies space. Joe tested 4 identical magnets, K, L, M, and N, to see how many pins were attracted to each magnet. He recorded the results in the table shown below. He then used a hammer to hit the 4 magnets for a period of time. He then tested how many pins the magnets could attract again. The results of his experiments are shown in the table below. What was observed from this experiment? The more the number of hits to the magnet, the lesser the number of pins it would attract. B. Explain your answer in A. The more times the magnet is hit, the lesser the number of pins are attracted to the magnets. C. State 2 other ways to reduce the number of pins attracted. Heat the magnet over the flame. Drop the magnet repeatedly. Jane placed 4 plants in identical jars, each containing water at the same level as shown below. He then placed the 4 setups A, B, C, and D next to the window for an hour. At the end of the experiment, Jane measured the height, h, in each jar. She found the height, h, to be 200 millimeters, 195 millimeters, 190 millimeters, and 180 millimeters. Complete the table to show the correct results of the experiment. B. Which 2 setups should be compared to show that the roots of the plant absorb water? A and C. There are some similarities between sexual reproduction in humans and that in flowering plants. Which process in the sexual reproduction of flowering plants is similar to the transfer of sperms to the female body in human reproduction? Pollination. B. The male and female human reproductive systems are shown below. Which part of the flowering plant is similar to X in terms of their functions? Anther. 2. Which part of the flowering plant is similar to Y in terms of their functions? Ovary. The diagram shows a baby developing inside a mother's body. Describe how a fertilized egg makes use of part A. The fertilized attaches itself to part A and cells multiply. B. What is the main function of part B? The umbilical cord provides food, oxygen, and water to the baby. C. How long does it usually take for the developing baby to be born after fertilization? About 9 months. For unknown substances A, B, C, and D are heated until they melted. Their melting temperatures are recorded in the table below. What is the change of state of the substances when they melt? The substance will melt from solid state into liquid state when it gains heat. B. Using the information above, which substances is or are in the solid state at 40 degrees Celsius? A and B. C. John claimed that none of the substances is a gas at 90 degrees Celsius. However, his teacher said that he cannot make that conclusion as he does not have enough information. What other information is required before he can arrive at that conclusion? He can test whether the substances can be compressed. Gases can't be compressed, while solids and liquids cannot be compressed. Ollie sets up an experiment as shown below to find out how the angle of inclination affects the distance a ball travels along the floor. He uses 3 balls of different sizes. He also uses 3 different heights for the ramp. Ollie's brother told him that this was not a fair test. Do you agree with Ollie's brother? Give a reason for your answer. Yes. There are 2 changed variables being changed at the same time, the size of the balls and the heights of the ramp. B. Why must experiments be carried out a few times? This is to reduce experimental errors in reading. A bicycle has been fitted with a simple dynamo. A dynamo converts kinetic energy to electrical energy. The dynamo is connected to the wheel and a light bulb. Aaron made some observations about the relationship between the speed of the bicycle and the brightness of the light from the bulb. The results were plotted into a graph as shown below. What can Aaron find out about the relationship between the speed of the bicycle and the brightness of the bulb? Explain your answer. The faster the speed of the bicycle, the brightness of the bulb increases. B. What can Aaron do if he wants more light at a lower speed. Use a stronger magnet. / increase copper coils in dynamo. / he could use a bigger and more powerful dynamo.